The entire ballroom fell silent. Hundreds of guests froze in place. Crystal chandeliers shimmered overhead, casting golden reflections across marble floors, while the city's wealthiest business leaders stared in disbelief at the stage. At the center stood a powerful CEO worth millions, a woman known for her intelligence, discipline, and impossible standards. Moments earlier, she had made a shocking promise in front of everyone. She had announced that she would marry whoever her young son chose. Most people laughed, assuming it was a charming joke. But when the little boy slowly lifted his hand and pointed across the room, every smile disappeared. He wasn't pointing at a famous entrepreneur. He wasn't pointing at a wealthy investor. He wasn't pointing at a celebrity. He was pointing at a tired single father, standing quietly near the back of the room, holding his daughter's hand. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the idea that true worth is found in the heart, rather than a bank account, please take a moment to like this video, leave a comment, share it with someone you care about, and subscribe to Dream Porch Stories for more emotional and inspiring stories. The woman was Victoria Langston, one of the most respected CEOs in the country. At 42, she had built an international technology company from the ground up. Newspapers admired her success. Competitors feared her determination. Investors trusted her judgment. Yet, behind the polished image was a woman, carrying a deep loneliness. 7 years earlier, Victoria had lost her husband in a tragic accident. Since then, her entire world had revolved around raising her son, Ethan. Ethan was only 8 years old, but he possessed an unusual sensitivity. While adults saw expensive suits and impressive resumes, Ethan seemed to notice things nobody else could see. He noticed sadness behind smiles. He noticed kindness hidden beneath ordinary appearances. And most importantly, he noticed people who needed compassion. Victoria's annual charity gala was one of the biggest events in the city. Wealthy donors gathered each year to support children's programs and educational initiatives. This year, Ethan had insisted on helping. Victoria agreed, believing it would teach him responsibility. She had no idea it would change both of their lives forever. Several weeks before the gala, Ethan had met a man named Daniel Carter. Daniel wasn't wealthy. In fact, life had been painfully difficult for him. 3 years earlier, Daniel's wife had passed away after a long illness, leaving him alone to raise their daughter, Lily. Medical bills had consumed their savings. The small business he once owned had collapsed under financial pressure. Now he worked multiple jobs simply to provide a modest life for his daughter. Most people who met Daniel saw an exhausted man struggling to survive, but Ethan saw something different. Their first meeting happened at a community park. Victoria was taking Ethan home. After school, when Ethan noticed Lily sitting alone on a bench, crying quietly. Nearby, Daniel was kneeling beside her, trying to comfort her after another child had mocked her worn-out shoes. Daniel couldn't afford new ones, yet instead of becoming angry or embarrassed, he gently reminded his daughter that character mattered more than appearances. Ethan watched the interaction closely. Something about Daniel's patience stayed with him. Over the following weeks, they crossed paths several more. Times Daniel always seemed tired. His clothes were simple. His car was old. But he consistently put others before himself. One rainy afternoon, Ethan saw Daniel help an elderly stranger whose groceries had fallen into a flooded parking lot. Another day, he watched Daniel give away his own lunch to a homeless veteran. Nobody was filming. Nobody was praising him. Daniel simply believed helping others was the right thing to do. Without realizing it, Ethan had begun to admire him. Meanwhile, Victoria remained unaware of these encounters. Her days were consumed by board meetings, international calls, and endless responsibilities. She loved her son deeply, but she often worried that success had isolated her from ordinary life. The night of the gala arrived. The grand ballroom sparkled with elegance. Guests arrived in designer clothing. Luxury vehicles lined the entrance. Reporters gathered outside, hoping to capture photos of influential attendees. Daniel almost didn't come. A local, Wauk, charity had gifted him, and Lily 2 tickets after hearing about their struggles. He felt uncomfortable among so much wealth, but Lily was excited. For one evening, she wanted to feel included, so Daniel borrowed a suit from a friend and attended. Throughout the evening, Victoria delivered speeches about community, compassion, and supporting children. The audience applauded enthusiastically. Then came a lighter moment near the end of the program. Victoria invited Ethan onto the stage. The crowd smiled warmly as the young boy joined his mother. Trying to entertain the audience, Victoria jokingly announced that because Ethan always seemed to know people's true character, she would trust his judgment completely. Then she made the playful promise. She would marry whoever Ethan chose. Laughter echoed across the ballroom. Nobody expected what happened next. Ethan didn't hesitate. His eyes scanned the crowd before settling on Daniel. Then he pointed. The room became completely silent. At Walesan, wanting sent. First, guests assumed Ethan was confused. Some even chuckled nervously. Victoria followed his gaze and saw a man she barely recognized. An ordinary single father standing quietly beside his daughter. She expected Ethan to change his mind. He didn't. Instead, he walked down from the stage and approached Daniel directly. The crowd watched in stunned silence. When Ethan reached him, he simply wrapped his arms around Daniel. Many guests felt unexpected emotion rising in their chests. Daniel looked. Overwhelmed, Victoria felt equally shocked. Yet as she observed the scene, she noticed something remarkable. Ethan's face carried complete certainty. There was no hesitation, no confusion. Only trust. Later that evening, Victoria finally asked Ethan why he had chosen Daniel. His answer changed everything. Ethan explained how he had watched Daniel help strangers, care for Lily, and treat everyone with dignity. He described moments Victoria had never witnessed. Moments that revealed a person's true character. Ethan said something that stayed with her long after the gala ended. He explained that lots of people had money, lots of people had success, but Daniel had a good heart. And according to Ethan, that was much harder to find. Victoria couldn't stop thinking about those words. For the first time in years, she realized how much she had been judging people through professional achievements rather than personal values. Curious, she began learning more about Daniel. What she discovered surprised her. Former employees described him as generous and fair. Neighbors praised his dedication as a father. Even during his hardest financial struggles, he continued helping others whenever possible. His life wasn't defined by what he had lost. It was defined by how he chose to respond to loss. Weeks turned into months. Victoria and Daniel gradually became friends. Their conversations were honest and refreshing. Neither tried to impress the other. They shared stories about grief, parenting, fear, and hope. Slowly, the walls surrounding both of their hearts began to crumble. Lily and Ethan became inseparable friends. For the first time in years, both families experienced genuine happiness. Daniel never asked Victoria for money, never sought special treatment, never attempted to benefit from her success. He simply remained the same humble man Ethan had first admired. That consistency mattered. Eventually, Victoria understood something profound. Her son hadn't chosen Daniel because he wanted a new father. He had chosen Daniel because he recognized goodness. He had seen a man who measured success through kindness instead of status. And he wanted his mother to see it too. 1 year after the unforgettable gala, friends and family gathered, once again in a beautifully decorated hall. This time, they weren't attending a charity event. They were attending a wedding. Victoria and Daniel stood together, surrounded by laughter, love, and the children who had brought them. Together, there were no grand business announcements, no corporate speeches, only gratitude. Before we reach the end of this story, please leave a comment with the words, "Kindness changes lives," if you believe a person's heart is more important than their wealth. As the ceremony concluded, Victoria looked toward Ethan and Lily. The two children were smiling proudly. Neither fully understood how extraordinary their journey had been, but both understood something simple. Love grows where kindness, lives. If this story touched your heart, inspired you, or reminded you of the importance of seeing the good in people, please like the video, share it with friends and family, and subscribe to Dream Porch Stories. Your support helps these meaningful stories reach more people around the world. Sometimes, life's greatest blessings don't arrive wrapped in success, fame, or fortune. Sometimes they arrive disguised as ordinary people carrying extraordinary hearts. And sometimes, it takes the wisdom of a child to help the rest of us see them.